The Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission Act 2009, MACC Act, is a crucial piece of legislation that aims to prevent and combat corruption in Malaysia. Administered by the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, the Act provides a comprehensive legal framework for addressing corruption offences, including bribery, abuse of power, and other forms of misconduct. Section 17A has the effect of making an organisation liable should any person associated with it commit an act of bribery or corruption with the intent of retaining an advantage for the organisation. If a commercial organisation is found liable, then persons who are in the management of its affairs at the time of the offence is deemed to have committed the offence. Prior to this, the law does not impose a corporate liability and an explicit need for organisation to put in place adequate procedures to defend themselves against liability for acts of bribery or corruption done in the organisation's favour. Who will be liable under corporate liability? It will be the directors, partners, officers, vendors, contractors. In short, anyone that is performing work or services for and on behalf of Time Group. The penalties are heavy. Fine of not less than 10 times the value of the gratification or 1 million ringgit Malaysia, whichever is higher. Or jail sentence not exceeding 20 years. Or both. If a violation occurs, how does an organisation defend itself? The organisation need to establish adequate procedures to prevent persons associated with it from undertaking such conduct. The following are guidelines on adequate procedures which are designed to be principle-based and for general application by any commercial organisation. Trust. T. Top-level commitment. R. Risk assessment. U. Undertake control measures. S. Systematic review, monitoring, and enforcement. T. Training and communication. Time Group has its own anti-bribery and corruption (ABC) policy which complies with the relevant Malaysian anti-bribery laws, primarily the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Act 2009, revised 2018, which is applicable to all employees and any third parties engaged by Time Group. The key principle is integrity above all else. The ABC policy outlines the company's commitment to uphold anti-corruption principles in promoting integrity, good governance, and transparency in all aspects of its operations and business. Time has zero-tolerance policy towards bribery and corruption. Non-compliance will have serious consequences, which is disciplinary action and even termination. Why is it important to have awareness and knowledge? Bribery and corruption are detrimental to the business. An organisation can suffer business disruption, financial loss, and reputational loss. Failure to comply can result in an employee's dismissal and damage claims to or from vendors and partners. We've always done it. It was only a small hamper and lunch treat for him and his partner. But my boss also does it. That's the way things work here. If only we'd known that it would be regarded as bribe. These are common excuses to justify bribes and corruption, but it does not represent good business practice or provide any defense under the law. What is corruption and bribery? It is important to distinguish the two even though they are always used interchangeably. There are 11 prohibited acts under Time's ABC policy, some of which have exceptions. First is gratification. Corporate personnel, customers, and 3PPS are prohibited from giving or receiving any gratification, whether directly or indirectly. It may be perceived as being intended to influence one's official acts or decisions, obtain or retain business or its advantage, or secure any improper advantage for the offerer. Gratifications can mean in any forms, such as money, donation, loan, or anything similar. Any office, dignity, employment, agreement, or render services in any capacity. Any payment, release, discharge, or other liability. Any valuable consideration in kind, discount, rebate, deduction, etc. Any forbearance to demand money or valuable thing. Any other service or favor of any description. Any offer, undertaking, or promise, whether conditional or unconditional. 2. Influence buying. Paying someone in a position of influence to use their personal influence for Time's benefit, either through buying or making an arrangement, by compensating them. 3. Any gratifications provided to government officials or politically exposed persons or the members of their family with the intention of influencing their decision-making or leveraging their influence in the decision-making process for time to secure or maintain business or gain an advantage. 4. Facilitation or grease payments to any government officials, PEP, person, entity or body that benefits or advantage time, whether to facilitate, accelerate or speed up a process. Facilitation payment is not allowed, but what if you encounter a situation involving a bribe demand or extortion? When you fear for your safety or that of others, you may have no option but to make or offer a payment. These are referred to as payments under duress and may have legal defenses. While payment made under duress may have legal defenses, it's crucial to distinguish them from regular repeated, systemic, or accepted payments, which do not qualify as payments under duress. If you face any extortion risks, you should immediately report the matter to C&E officer and the relevant authorities, if appropriate, at the earliest opportunity. If you made a payment due to unavoidable and compelling circumstances, record the payment and keep records and document all pertinent details, e.g. particulars of the requester, where and when the incident took place, what was requested and the method of request, chronology of events, etc. Upon receiving your report, C&E officer will inform internal audit and relevant authorities. 5. No third-party agent or intermediary shall be engaged for any purpose unless such engagement is required following a business case submitted and approved by the management and fulfills the conditions set. 6. All payment of a fee or commission to a third party are prohibited unless prior C&E clearance is obtained and fulfills the condition set. 7. No gratification is to be provided, offered or agreed in return for information that will give time a competitive edge over its competitors in any bidding or tender process. 8. Corporate personnel must report any suspected money laundering activities or requests to the C&E officer. If in doubt or upon observing suspicious activities, employees or third-party providers must immediately notify their line manager and the C&E officer. 9. Contribution or donations, whether in cash, kind or other means, to support any political party, politician or candidate for political or administrative office, or to donate to a charity recommended by a government official or PEP, as this may be perceived as an attempt to gain an advantage for time. 10. Time Group may participate and provide sponsorships to further promote Time's business if there is a clear business case and adhere to Time Group's policies, ensuring they do not constitute illegal payments. 11. Time Group can engage in CSR activities provided they are legitimate and necessary approvals have been obtained prior to the activities. General business courtesies is one where you offer to pay for a certain item or service for a customer, supplier, or a government official. It may be a gift, meal, entertainment, or travel, better known as GMET, and can be a normal and healthy part of building business relationships. The general rule: Time will not offer or accept GMET to encourage or reward a decision, and does not condone the act of offering or accepting GMET by its external stakeholders to encourage or reward a benefit given or to be considered for time. Due to cultural sensitivities, there is a need for us to exercise proper care and judgment, anchored always on the mandatory principles outlined. There are a few mandatory principles with regards to general business courtesies. 1. Compliance with applicable laws, regulations, policies, and internal guidelines including DDM. 2. Consistency. 3. Business purpose. 4. No improper influence. 5. Made openly and socially acceptable. 6. Reasonable in value. 7. Appropriate and occasional. 8. Accurately recorded. 9. Due diligence successfully concluded. 10. C&E clearance is obtained. GMET may be given if it is consistent with the mandatory principles and subject to the additional requirement. Giving GMET for third parties, an employee may only pay for the ordinary and necessary business entertainment expenses or the travel and accommodation expenses of third parties if the mandatory principles are followed without exception and if the expenses are reasonable. Giving GMET for government officials for any business entertainment or travel on Time's behalf must first receive C&E clearance. Visiting government officials and bringing them gift as a token of respect is permissible if the gift complies with the mandatory principles and is commensurate with the status and designation of such government official in his or her official capacity only. Buying meals for government officials is permitted if it complies with the mandatory principles and the following additional criteria. 1. The offer to buy is made by the corporate personnel first and not by the government official. 2. You and the recipient must be present throughout the period. And 3. The venue must be appropriate, not too extravagant, shady, or unusual for business to be conducted. Any approved receipt of GMET must be consistent with the mandatory principles above and subject to the following additional requirements of the specific situation. When receiving GMET on travel and accommodation paid by 3PP or customer, an employee may, subject to prior to a successful outcome of due diligence in accordance with Times DDM and C&E clearance, before accepting invitations to promotional or business events where the organizing entity or company, other than a member of the Time Group, assumes reasonable transportation, lodging, and all meal expenses. If no clearance is given, you must decline the payment of the travel and accommodation offered. On entertainment paid by 3PP or customer, an employee may receive reasonable form of entertainment such as attendance to sports events, theatre, concert, movie, or some other corporate hospitality event which is paid by the 3PP or customer, if and only if it is in the normal course of business that can be seen to promote good business relationship and is a legitimate form of networking and subject to prior C&E clearance. If no clearance is given by C&E officer, you must respectfully decline the offer. When receiving meals or drinks paid by 3PP or customer, both employee and the 3PP or customer must be present throughout the period at an appropriate venue. The employee must promptly report such engagements to the C&E officer if the value of the meal received is more than 200 ringgit per person, specifying the details of the value of the meals and drinks, the duration, the location, and the purpose. Suppliers and 3PPS. The policy outlines the conduct and obligations of 3PPS. They must comply with all laws, avoid conflicts of interest, conduct themselves ethically and with integrity, honesty and transparency, and lastly, adhere to business courtesies. 3PPS shall adhere to the ABC policy, and when engaging with us, sign a declaration to conform to this policy, attend relevant ABC training when required, and report actual or suspected bribery and other corrupt or unethical acts. Time employees are required to carry out due diligence in accordance to Times Due Diligence Manual, DDM, on our current or prospective 3PP, based on the criteria listed in the ABC policy. Failure to comply may result in action which include termination of contracts. An individual or group has several interests, whether financial or not, and pursuing one could put them at odds with another. This is known as a conflict of interest. When a person or a business has conflicting interests, it can be difficult for them to be objective, make sound decisions, or avoid making biased decisions. This can result in perceived or actual bias in their actions. All employees are required to abstain from having any real, apparent, or prospective conflicts of interest with Time Group. If an employee finds itself in such a position, the employee must disclose the actual, perceived, or potential conflict of interest via the channels that have been provided by the company. All employees and 3PPS must use the Conflict of Interest Declaration form to declare any conflicts of interest. Conflicts of interest for employees is described in the Code of Conduct Handbook and Conflict of Interest Policy. The employees shall also take the necessary actions to immediately distance, recuse, or remove himself/herself from the situation. As an employee of Time Group, in the event of a conflict of interest, you must disclose, seek guidance, recuse yourself, maintain transparency and follow company policy. If there is a conflict of interest, you must not hide information, participate in decision-making, accept gifts or favors, engage in outside employment, and ignore policies. Prior to establishing any formalized relationship or renewing an existing relationship with a third party, due diligence process must be conducted in accordance with Times Due Diligence Manual. The primary goal of a due diligence process is to gather sufficient information to assess potential bribery risks associated with third parties in business relationships with Time Group. The DDM therefore serves as a guide for informed decision-making, including the possibility of declining, suspending, or terminating relationships with the third parties, strategically mitigating legal, financial, or reputational risks, and aligns with the ABC policy. Due diligence is carried out not only on 3PP, but also extends to corporate personnel of certain position and M&A and special projects. Example of a due diligence mechanism that has been implemented and introduced in Time Group is Know Your Counterparty Questionnaire, i.e. KYC, which is applicable to all third parties that Time engage with. When performing a due diligence with third party, it must be noted that the business unit of the employee engaging the third party is the first line of defense, and compliance is the second. While everyone shares responsibility for due diligence, the business unit must ensure a thorough background check is conducted before engaging with any third party to protect Time's interest. Together, we ensure the best interest of Time Group. Consequences of non-compliance. If an employee fail, neglect or refuse to comply with the policy, it will be deemed tantamount to a breach of the policy, and may result in dismissal. For 3PP, their engagement with Time will be terminated and no compensation will be payable. Lack of understanding of the policy or acting on instructions from a superior will not be an excuse for non-compliance. If an employee is given formal advice by the C&E officer, he or she must abide by it. Failure to do so shall be deemed to be in breach of this policy. If an employee is found guilty of breaching the policy, any financial benefit that was granted or paid by Time due to that breach, other than salary payments, are to be fully repaid or returned to Time. Reporting and escalation. As an employee of Time, you are expected to report any suspected, threatened, or actual breach of ABC policy via the following channel: whistleblowing channels or C&E officer. No employee will suffer retaliation or disciplinary action for reporting any potential violation of this policy. All matters related to ABC clearance must be made via ABC portal. You may refer to the list on type of request and its details. The following are a list of scenario and timing to obtain clearance from C&E officer, either before or after the event. It is your responsibility to understand where the risk of bribery or corruption is in our organization, industry, and country. Report your concerns to relevant parties in the event of bribery or corruption. Understand the impact of a bribery incident to our organization. Be familiar with the law. Ensure and follow proper policies and procedures. Do not participate in bribery. For any inquiry, you may email to abc@time.com.my. When in doubt, please contact Time's Compliance and Ethics Officer or ABC Program Team for assistance and guidance. For more detail, you may refer to the ABC policy that is available in intranet under People portal.